I want to talk about Hong Kong. Let's talk about Hong Kong first. I haven't really spent a lot of time on the radio show talking about this. I've blogged about it and posted about it on social media, but this Hong Kong thing is getting kind of nuts. And it's been happening for weeks now. We thought that maybe it was going to die down after the government of Hong Kong said, all right, we're not going to let the Chinese take over, but it's not. It's continuing to happen. But for me, I think one of the most amazing things about what is happening in Hong Kong, for those of you who don't know, Hong Kong is basically autonomous and used to be a part of the UK, obviously. UK kind of turned them over, and now what is happening is the Chinese Communist government is saying that they're going to, now start to implement their laws on Hong Kong. And there was this whole legal thing that happened, and people were protesting. People in Hong Kong are free. They're free, just like you and I are free. And obviously, people in China are not. So people in Hong Kong are fighting literally right now for their freedom. And they're trying to do it in a somewhat passive way, though there have been clashes with the authorities and things of that nature. Let me just go to the week, okay? Hong Kong seems to be heading to a Tiananmen-like situation with thousands of protesters thronging the streets. Chinese media has already warned of potential terrorism rising in the country and even accused the U.S. of supporting the riots. A video posted on Twitter shows pro-democracy supporters in Hong Kong waving the American flag during the fury of the Beijing-backed government. Now, here's the thing. We're not talking about one person. We are talking about a bunch of them waving the American flag. They sang the national anthem. This is in Hong Kong. That's never been a U.S. territory, ever. But look, our country is where people who aren't free look to for inspiration and strength. That's just how it is. Now, I get it. The latte sipping, finger pointing troglodytes out there don't view this country that way because they've never been anywhere else. And the people who do venture outside of the U.S. to prove that these cesspools, these bleep holes, if you will, around the world are actually really wonderful places to go, almost all of them end up dead. You realize that? Now, I'm talking about activists, I'm talking about social justice warriors, and I'm talking about journalists. They go to these countries like Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, things like, and they end up dying. They get abducted by terrorists or jihadists or something of that nature, and they end up being killed in an effort to prove that these places are just as good as America. I got news for you. They're not. They're not. And for all of our faults, I'm going to quote Lieutenant Colonel Randolph C. White, paraphrasing, I should say. For all of our faults, I can think of no place greater. And really, honestly, that is it. There are other good places out there, but there aren't any other places out there who are as good as we are when it comes to the freedom that you have here. There are places that enjoy slightly more economic freedom because the governments have learned to get out of their way. But as far as your social freedoms and things like that, no place in this world compares to what we allow and permit you to do. The protest had initially started in angst against a bill introduced in February, which allowed the city's citizens to be extradited by the Chinese government. Despite a suspicion of the bill, citizens have demanded more political and democratic reforms. Hong Kong's autonomy from China runs out in 2045, putting the city's future in jeopardy should the city fall into the communist regime. China's foreign ministry spokesperson said on Monday at a press conference that the U.S. and the UK had openly endorsed the demonstrations, thus fueling the protests. First of all, we haven't. Second of all, I wish we would. I wish we would. To my knowledge, President Trump hasn't done any such thing, nor has there been an official capacity for the UK or the US who has done it. Now, if I'm wrong about that, send it to me, okay? But to my knowledge, there has been nobody in an official capacity who has actually done that. Now, China, of course, they're doing their political spin machine here, and they're trying to make it seem like the CIA is involved in this and everything. By the way, I hope they are, okay? I hope that these people don't get killed, don't get me wrong, but I certainly do hope that the United States and the United Kingdom would be backing free citizens of Hong Kong from being oppressed by a communist overtaker. I would certainly hope that that would be the position of the United States. Obviously, not to the point where we get into armed conflict with China. We should try to avoid that if we can. But there's no reason that we can't apply pressure in order to help these people because they're genuinely concerned. Now, imagine just for a minute, that you are an American, you're living totally free, and all of a sudden the Russians wanted to come in and take away a bunch of your rights. That's what's happening. And it's not fair to them. They obviously don't want it. Let's see. Chinese also accused U.S. political hierarchy of meeting anti-China stakeholders in Hong Kong, thereby criticizing China and instigating activities that undermine the Beijing-backed government. Okay, they don't need any motivation to be worried about China. They live right next door. They don't need any sort of motivation from us. They don't need any information from us. They're a free society who is a pillar of what capitalism can accomplish. And the fact that they feel like, and they're not wrong, the fact that they feel like their freedoms are at serious risk and jeopardy here, especially with everything that's happening with the social credit score and all this crap in China right now, like why on earth would you ever want to be absorbed into that when you come from one of the most prosperous and technologically advanced places on earth? Why would you ever allow, and China is still a third world, okay? Why would you ever allow a third world communist government to take you over? Because that's exactly what they're attempting to do. Now, again, in Hong Kong, 2045, if no additional deal is struck by 2045, it'll be reabsorbed into China. And who knows what China is going to look like in 2045? But this was a move to go ahead and make China be able to extradite citizens of Hong Kong to China to face persecution under Chinese communist laws, when Hong Kong has a totally different legal system. And things that are perfectly legal in Hong Kong are not legal in China. So why on God's green earth would you want China to be able to extradite you over into their country for things that you do when it's not been a criminal offense in your entire life? Again, especially when we're talking about social media credit scores and things of that nature. But if you look at these images here, they are multiple people waving the American flag. Obviously, this is a symbol of freedom and liberty to everybody around the world, but it's also something that is designed to draw sympathy, because if there is going to be a group of people that sympathize with the people of Hong Kong, it will be us. Just like when the Brits wanted to separate from the European Union. Is it fine if the Brits stay in the European Union? Certainly. Is it going to affect our relationship with the Brits at all? No, it's not going to. We're still going to be friends and allies with them. Now, there's obviously going to be some economic stuff, but it's not going to be a big deal. We've had a great working relationship before the Brits were a part of the EU and after the Brits were a part of the EU. But what ended up happening is Americans supported the British effort to Brexit because Americans believe that the British people are capable of running their own country without foreign influence. And we believe in their capabilities of doing that. We also happen to know that Germany and Britain bore the majority of the negatives of being absorbed into the European Union. I remember when the European Union was being created, and I remember looking at this and going, why on God's green earth would Germany and England sign on to this? Every other country joining this thing is a terrible economy and worthless currency, and they don't have manufacturing capabilities. They don't produce anything. They're mostly social welfare states. And here you've got the UK and Germany, who are manufacturing powerhouses and economic powerhouses, and they're just going to foot the bill for all of it. And finally, the Brits had enough of it. So Americans were the ones in the international community. Americans were the ones that looked at England and said, yeah, we get it. Brexit, run. We'll support you. We'll back you up. In spirit, obviously not in arms or anything like that. And there were plenty of Americans out there, other than President Obama, who threatened England with economic repercussions if they left. There are plenty of Americans out there going, yeah, no, we'll still do business with you. This isn't going to be a problem. And, of course, we all know what's been happening with Brexit. But it wasn't because we hated the English or hated the European Union that we supported them. It was because we understood the cry for freedom. And we're looking at this in Hong Kong, and the people of Hong Kong who are demonstrating out there, they understand that we understand that. And so when they sing our national anthem and put our American flag up there, yes, it's because it's a symbol of freedom and liberty, but also because they know that Americans will sympathize and at least publicly give them moral support. And that is exactly what we've been seeing happen on social media. We've got more coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's News Channel.